All right, strategic angling fans, we got another special interview for you today. We're very excited about this one. We are joined by Bass Pro Tour angler Alton Jones Jr., young guy, successful angler, done well on Bassmaster Elite as well as the MLF format, and he's taken some time out to just kind of talk with us about his schedule, what's coming up, what he's already done this year, and some exciting new baits he's got a partnership with. So after that, Alton, welcome. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Brady. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, I know we just wrapped up Redcrest and we saw Dustin Connell win, but we also saw, you have a nice showing on a couple of those days. Would you, mind taking us through kind of what was working for you and where you think, you maybe should have made a change or something, little feedback on Redcrest?
Yeah, so Redcrest was a one-of-a-kind tournament, especially this year. We were originally supposed to have it on Palestine, and so all of my mental prep, my map studies, everything was put in on Lake Palestine, research, and that's what we were all prepared for, everyone that qualified for it. However, we had a really bad winter storm, lasted over a week here. Palestine basically froze over. I stopped at a gas station after Redcrest on the way back in East Texas, and they still didn't have water. So that kind of tells you how bad it was around here. So, we had to move the tournament. We went to Lake Eufala. So I found out Thursday night that we were moving to Eufala, and I had to leave Saturday morning. So, I had 24 hours to pack.
Oof.
Which is fine. Luckily, Eufala is a pretty easy tournament to pack for, being as dirty water as it is. But the real kicker there was 1 day of practice.
Right.
Just the way the tournament permits and everything worked out. It was definitely crippling from an angler's perspective. It's a big lake. You're looking at, I don't know how big exactly, but it's got to be close to 50,000 acres.
Yeah.
And when you're staring 11 hours of practice in the face, it is a daunting task.
Had you been to Eufala much?
I had been to Eufala. I fished it last year, is where we actually started the Bass Pro Tour season, and I finished fourth there. So I have some good history there. It was almost the exact same type of year, so I was lucky in that regard. And it actually fished very similar.
Did it? Okay.
When I dropped the boat in the water, I was hoping to see like 54-degree water. I saw 47-degree water. So they had the big winter cold snap there too. It was chocolate milk. And me being a Central Texas angler, I would prefer to fish shallow. And so I actually started my practice shallow, which in hindsight was probably a bad idea when you ask about like things I would do differently.
Yeah.
And if you look at the guys that, finished in the top 5, almost every single one of them was fishing offshore.
Right.
However, I think even the guys that were fishing offshore, they kind of took a different approach to it. They started deep, planning, I can go shallow at any time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to make an adjustment, a shallow adjustment is a much easier one than a deep adjustment.
Right. It seemed like shallow played better in the first 3 days of competition.
Yeah, and so when I started practice, I kind of went to where I fished last year, just with a limited time, and I got bit. Surprisingly well for as cold as the water was. And we had a big warming trend coming, and in my mind, I'm just like, these fish are coming to me. I'm catching these fish in a foot of water and 47-degree water. How good is it going to be when it gets to be 57, or 60? And what I misjudged was just the how far behind those fish were, how deep some of those fish were, and how cold the main lake was. And, when you've got that current and moving water and that deep water, it really doesn't, the sun doesn't take effect as good as you would think. What I was catching was resident fish, and every day that shallow bite just got tougher and tougher and tougher.
Even as the water warmed, though, right?
Yeah, even as the water warmed. But what we had is, where I might see 60 degrees in this pocket on the main lake.
Yep.
You go to the point on the outside of the pocket where it's 12 feet deep where these fish are sitting, and it's still 50 degrees because that deep current churning water just doesn't warm very fast. And I misjudged that. And, I think had this tournament been a week later or 2 weeks later, it would have been a whole other story because it really was a ticking time bomb. It had to come shallow soon.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of things. We had a full moon coming. Like, there was a lot of things that tell me go shallow. I just missed it by that much.
Yeah, I mean that's a really tough scenario for you guys. 1 day of practice for your biggest event of the year. Basically, I know it kind of is similar payout to heavy hitters, but it's kind of your championship, and had to be a little disappointing and challenging. To have only 1 day, but it's very, very impressive. Just how good guys are to figure a place out in one day. So. Yeah.
Well, it was disappointing to have 1 day of practice. I mean, everybody was dealt the same
right.
hand. So. On that aspect, it was fair. I was just more probably, I don't know if anybody watched, I was more shocked on Crest's performance that final day than anything else. I had given him the trophy already if you'd asked me.
What do you think happened there if you had to speculate? He was just on him, and then nothing.
I think his fish just moved. I was talking about, expecting fish to come to me type thing.
Yep.
And I don't think those fish were just like on the bank chewing right after they left his spot, but they were making that move. They were moving shallower, moving away from him. And if I actually talked to Jacob Wheeler for a while after that event, and those brush piles they were catching them on were generally shallow brush. I mean, they're 5-6 feet, and he said that those fish were coming to them, that they weren't on it that good the first day of the tournament, second day of the tournament,
right.
Even the third day of the tournament. He said, as the week went on, there were more fish coming from those deeper haunts pulling up, and I don't know if Brian was just fishing that next level out where fish were leaving him and they were going to those guys just kind of in that in-between stage, but
yeah.
That's what's really cool about fishing this time of year is because you really have to think like a bass. You can't win off of one spot, Yeah. It's just fish are constantly moving, constantly changing.
Okay. Well, so how often do you find I know I saw on Twitter you were watching obviously the final day. How often do you turn in to watch? If you've been eliminated. I know you're obviously trying to be there on TV as well, but.
Right. Oh, if I'm eliminated, I'm watching.
Yeah.
Because it's a great way to learn. I want to learn from my mistakes. When I miss it, it's always really funny to see. Oh man, I was 100 yards off. Or I threw this bait, or I should have thrown this color, and it just helps you become a better angler. It helps you not. You take notes of those mistakes and you learn from those mistakes.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's obviously very, very insightful and appreciated insight into Redcrest. Looking forward at the schedule, you've got Sam Rayburn coming up next, and then you go to Raleigh for the heavy hitters, and then back to Texas. So, is this going to be the most looked forward to stretch of the schedule for you, or is there another event you're eyeballing that you're excited about?
I think this stretch, especially the Rayburn tournament, I actually didn't make heavy hitters. I didn't catch enough big ones. As good of a year as I had last year, I just missed heavy hitters. But Sam Rayburn, to me, it's going to be an amazing event. I can't wait. I've had a lot of history there, and Travis too. I think. Travis just kicked out a 15-pounder, broke the lake record. With all this cold weather we've had, I think it's really positioned fish well, as bad as it's been for the entire state as a whole and all of our water lines and electricity. But for the bass fishing, it's positioned fish very well, put them very predictable, and kind of set them back, push them back from where they'd like to be. But what that means is when they do go to the bank and they do go shallow, they all go at once, and they're usually pretty easy to catch. So I think Rayburn, we're going to hit perfect. I mean, it's a big bass factory, and there's a lot of fish in there. So
yeah, it seems like Texas has just popped off in the last 10 days. Just huge bags being caught.
Yeah, I think there's been nine share lunkers, which for those that don't know, that's fish over 13 pounds, have been turned in from 3 different lakes in the past 2 weeks.
That's crazy.
It's been a good run. It's been a really good run.
Absolutely. So yeah, looking forward to the later part of the schedule. It looks like there's a bit of a smallmouth swing at the end. St. Lawrence, Champlain, and St. Clair. Which one of those 3 are you? I know Champlain's a mix, but which one of those 3 are you kind of looking forward to if you had to pick one?
That's a hard one to pick because they're all so good in their own respects, and it seems like to me one of those 3 will hit perfect. I don't know which one it is, but one of those 3 will hit really well, and you'll just see 4 and 5 pound smallmouth out the wazoo, which will be really, really fun. But I'm probably looking forward to St. Clair the most. And the reason being is, we fished out of Lake Erie out of Sandusky last year.
Right.
And I made that run to St. Clair 4 days in a row.
Which resulted in some absurd video footage of you in some big waves.
Yeah, which was one of the worst 4 days I'll ever spend in a boat. However, the fishing was fantastic, and it was painful that I could only fish for like 2 hours a day. So now that we're going out of St. Clair, it's going to be nice to just be able to putt out there and drift around all day like I'd like to do,
Yeah.
I might have a little nightmare flashbacks, running across that lake. But I'm looking forward to just being able to fish there all day, to be honest. I mean, as weird as that might sound.
Yeah, I get it. That run you were making was nuts, and the video was crazy. All right, well, that's a good breakdown of what's happened and what's going to happen on the Bass Pro Tour. Are you fishing to any Toyota Series events? Are you going to fish any Pro Circuit events? I know the Super Tour is not really happening this year, but you guys can you still fish the Pro Circuit, or do you have to sign up?
Yeah, you have to sign up for them all. I opted out of it. I looked very, very closely at it.
Yeah.
However, the way the schedule worked out, it just didn't make sense for me. There's none in the state of Texas. I mean, there's really none within like 10 hours of my home.
Yeah.
And it would put me going from, Florida back to Texas, back to South Carolina, back to over here, and then back to New York, and then back to Texas. Or you know what I mean? It just doesn't make.
Didn't feel like
from a driving standpoint, it would put a huge strain on me. I'd be driving all through the night to possibly miss a day of practice because I did well in one event, or something like that. And
spread yourself a little thin by doing that.
Right. Now, if you look at guys in Alabama who've got 2 in their home state and things like that, absolutely, I'm all over that. You know what I mean? But for me, it's something I'll look at again next year.
Yep.
If it comes out and all of a sudden they're going to, to Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma for 3 of their events, you'll probably find me on that roster.
All right. Well, we'll have to look forward to that. If there was one lake in the country, that you could pick, time of year and lake to have a Bass Pro Tour on, where would you go, and why?
This is gonna sound crazy, but I might pick Sam Rayburn in about 2 weeks.
Well, good.
It's just always been really good to me. It's a big bass factory, and I've always just felt like I've got a good lay of the land, And the reason I would probably pick that time of year is, as good as Rayburn is, it typically gets 1 deep almost year round.
Right.
Guys that fish brush piles and drag a football jig for 4 or 5 bites a day.
And gigantic crankbaits. And
Right. And more power to them. But that's just, it's not really my style. I've always been the guy that fishes shallow and does better than he should shallow, but can't quite win there. You know what I mean? I've had seconds and thirds and fifths and eighths and all that, be it a Bass Champs or a Texas Team Trail or even a Bassmaster Elite Series.
Yep.
And I just think that is the time of the year where someone that likes to fish shallow like myself and has a lot of experience there can win a tournament. Well, and that's just really doesn't matter the format, whether it be a 5-fish or a Major League Fishing format. And so I'm licking my lips to get there. I love that place. I used to go there a bunch, in college. It's only 2.5 hours from my house, So
you're as of March 4th, you're going on record predicting yourself the winner. Then, right? We can post that.
Hey, you can mark that down. Send those bets to Vegas.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, moving on. You picked up a new sponsor this year, G-Crack. I know we've talked a little bit about them off camera, but is there a bait from them you're really excited about, or you found yourself using more that you maybe wouldn't have before this partnership with them?
Yeah, there's several baits that I'm really, really excited about as the year comes on. I don't know if I'm supposed to divulge this, but we're also working on some signature series stuff down the line. So hopefully, maybe this fall we'll be able to talk again about some of that.
Yeah.
The Bellows gill is what they're known for. And that thing is it's a big fish catcher. And how I fell in love with it was actually last year at Lake Fork, and it was a sight fishing event. And the Bellows gill is just this. If you haven't seen it, look it up. They're on Tackle Warehouse, but it's a super unique bluegill profile bait. You can fish it a lot of different ways. I got guys that Carolina rig it, Tokyo rig it, and all different kinds of things. But I just started flipping the thing, and then sight fishing with it, like on a flipping setup, 3/8 ounce weight with a 4/0 hook. And these fish that I would flip a Cinco at or a tube, it might take me 30 minutes to catch this 5-pounder on a bed. And obviously every fish is different, but I'd flip that Bellows gill in there, and just that profile and the movement of that bait, all of a sudden this 30-minute fish becomes a 2-flip fish.
Which is huge for you and your format, obviously.
Huge. And a bait that it's kind of replaced for me, that was the Big Bite baits, the Warmouth. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yep, I have.
That used to be one of my go-to sight fishing baits, and it was just because of the profile. It looks like a bluegill laying on the bed down there, and this is just a much more natural, and it moves more than that bait. Obviously, it doesn't. You don't look at it and see the eyes like you do on the Warmouth, but just the profile of the bait and the movement is second to none, and it's become something that I really like. And we've also got a color that is going to be a Rayburn killer. It's called Dark Magic.
Ooh, is it got some?
Or dark Matter. I apologize, not Dark Matter.
Got a little red in it, or got a little red in there, or what?
It's actually it's a true black and blue,
okay,
but a very sapphire-y black and blue. If that makes sense.
Yep.
And one of my favorite things to do on Rayburn up on that north end is I actually flip a sapphire blue jig, like just straight blue. Blue
skirt, blue black, trailer, blue head, everything blue?
Blue, yeah, like a blue super chunk trailer.
Yep.
Everything. And in that dirtier water, and I just think it just stands out so much. It gets bit up there. And so I'm really excited to take that bait either as a jig trailer or just the bait itself and go flip it around on Rayburn.
Well, cool. I'll flash a picture of that thing on the screen, but it is a very unique looking bait. He's not kidding.
Yeah, it's cool. I just don't knock it till you try it. It's the 3.8 inch is what you want to get. It's a pretty good size bait, so be prepared to fish for some good size fish.
Very cool. So outside of G-Crack, is there any other baits, from your sponsors that have come out this year that you're finding yourself using? I know you're also a Booyah guy, or I don't know what other.
I'm actually no longer a Booyah guy.
No? I looked at the.
I still throw a little bit of their stuff, their covert spinnerbait. it's hard to beat. You got to be honest there. I'm no longer affiliated with them. The only bait ties I have at the moment are G-Crack.
Well, Major League Fishing sent me up for failure there because they're still using a nice picture of you with a big old booyah on the front.
Yeah, they just need to update my jersey photo.
We're gonna have to work on that with them.
Yeah, I'll make a phone call after this. We'll get it right.
All right, sounds good. Well, really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to mention, talk about today? I know I promised I'd keep it short and sweet, so.
No, man, I just really appreciate you having me on, and I hope here in a couple weeks maybe I'll hop back on and talk about how that prediction for me winning Rayburn was right.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm going to pencil you in for winning Rayburn, and I'm also going to pencil you in for calling back in after that event and talking about how you won. So.
Sounds good. I like the way you think.
All right, dude. Thank you for joining, and good luck at Rayburn. We'll keep an eye on you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me on.
See you, dude.